I had done one series before that. Well, I've done several before that, but one of them that stood out for me up until then was a character of Lou Jack on Guiding Light. That
Right.
was the first TV job I had ever had, and but the David Hayward was the first one to rival that one for me in significance. And I think in long and for the longest reason is because it was for the longest term. It was for 14 years rather than the
Hmm.
2 years I played Lou Jack.
Yeah.
So it was pretty extraordinary to go through that character's life and have him develop and change and grow. And, it's like the one thing about daytime is that you feel like you're an automaton. You feel like you go to work and then they put another chip in your back and they tell you all of a sudden you had a brother you didn't know you had, things
Yeah.
like that. So it's like all of a
Oh, by
sudden
the
you're
way, they're
acting about.
twins after
That's
all.
right. That's right. And that's happened to me on Guiding Light. I was a twin and didn't know it.
Right.
One of us was separated at birth. So I played
I mean,
both.
the journey of being being on a soap and playing a character that can be turned and twisted in any direction at any moment at any time, I can only imagine must be an adventure and a half. Uh,
It is. It's very exciting, and it is, especially when the stories are really good, and just the relationships that you develop with the characters and with the people playing them. Daytime is like one big ensemble.
mhm.
It really is a repertory company. Where people come from other shows as well. But it's so exciting when you're in a storyline that you love because you can't wait to read the next script.
Yeah.
That's what happens all the time, and we talk about it sometimes in the makeup room. It's like, oh wow, did you read what happens here? Did you read what's going to happen? And it's like to see the whole cast be, engaged on that level. It's very exciting.
Well, I mean, so the period of time in All My Children that I am personally the most intimately familiar with is the last year. So
Uh,
for me personally, All My Children was something that was a constant in my life, but not something that I was always super focused on because that was the show that my mom was watching every day.
yeah,
Um,
sure.
there have been moments, like when I was a little kid, Natalie being thrown in the well, by and being saved by Dimitri was the most fascinating thing to my 4-year-old brain that I had ever seen.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
He
Okay.
would say, Mama, Mama, let's watch Natalie in the Well. He didn't call it All My Children. Let's watch Natalie in the Well,
That
Natalie in the
was the
Well.
name of it.
Oh my
That was the
God.
subtitle for him. Natalie in the Well.
Yeah.
All my children.
yeah, the theme song
Right.
would start playing, and
Parenthetically.
I'd start running around going, "Mama!" Uh,
But
um,
that's interesting that you say that because honestly, that really was the key to the longevity of daytime soaps to begin with. It really was before the internet and before the 120 channels on TV. Mothers, most of them, many of them were housewives, and they were home, doing the chores of the day, doing the laundry, cleaning the house, and they had their daytime soaps on, and their children were sitting at their feet, or
mhm.
sitting on the couch, and they didn't have their video games, they didn't have the distractions that kids have today. So they definitely, it was like for them, it was introducing that type of storytelling to the next generation, and that's why it did have the longevity that it had. Like Guiding Light was on between radio and TV for 72 years, and it was in large part due to that,
Yeah.
without question. So you're a product of that, Matt, is what I'm
And
trying
then
to
here
say.
I am today, just being the dorkiest of dorks, just deep analyzing today's soap operas and trying to pull morsels
That's
of logic and story and development and why are we doing this every week?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and it's because of the lifelong presence of soap operas in my life, and there are a few tentpole things that have existed, things that I remember well. Natalie in the Well, no pun intended.
yes.
There was this giant earthquake that collapsed a building on a bunch of characters, and Stuart and Marion fell in love. I remember that
Uh-huh.
very well. Uh,
Yeah, I
They were
remember
trapped.
being.
They were like trapped underground, weren't they?
something.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
wasn't
think
on the
so.
show at that time when that happened, but
Yeah.
there was one that was similar to that where we had the explosion at a masked ball,
Ugh,
which
soap
actually that
disasters.
yeah, it was a soap disaster, and actually it turned into the explosion that they did was much larger than they had anticipated, and there were a few stunt people that got burned as a
Oh,
result of it.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, they were rushed to a hospital. It was kind of a big deal, but the storyline it continued on where it was Dr. David, and Palmer were stuck in a pod somewhere, and that I loved working with James Mitchell. I loved him. We had a good friend. We had a friend relationship outside of work too. We went to see Broadway plays together and went to dinner, and I just loved him. And I was also very protective of him, as was Ginger Smith, who was one of the producers, because he had he needed oxygen to work. Okay,
Mm.
when he was working, he had oxygen tanks, and where we were was very dusty. And I was constantly asking him, please bring him his oxygen. After each scene, each take, let him breathe for a little bit. But he was a trooper, and I just loved it. But we were stuck in one of those things when the collapse there, and our characters they were fun. It was fun to play opposite him because I kept calling him Daddy because he married Vanessa.
Yeah, he
So,
married
okay,
Vanessa.
Daddy-o. All right, Daddy-o. So that, and it made him crazy. But yeah, we had the best time. I loved him. I just loved James Mitchell. He was an amazing man.
I mean, Palmer was such a fun character to watch,
Yeah.
just as a viewer. The
Yeah.
snark, the sass, the everything that was Palmer Cortland.
I'm going to share a story with you that happened with me and James. I've shared it a few times, but it's probably a lot of people haven't heard it. But it's a really good story, actually. I knew who he was before I even worked in daytime because my family, my grandparents used to watch shows, and my sister would sometimes watch all my children, and I knew the whole thing with Palmer and Nina and Peter Bergman. I can't remember what was the character's name? Cliff, Nina, and I didn't watch soaps at the time, but I knew who they were because I'd see them on the TV all the time, and I'd see him. And when I first started working daytime as Lou Jack on Guiding Light, I did an appearance in New Jersey. And like a lot of the young actors at the time, I confess that we had long work schedules during the week. It was intense. And my character was front and center. So I had so much material. And usually on a Friday night, you go out to unwind, and I would be out there and I'd see other actors from other soaps as well. Like Michael Knight, I'd see him at a bar. I'd see other people as well, even Darnell Williams. And I would see them. We'd get, pretty wasted. And I had to get up the next morning to go to an appearance in New Jersey. All right. And at the time, I was living in a rooming house. I had a room sharing it with 6 other people, a bathroom and a kitchen. And in Greenwich Village, it was my first TV job in the theater before it, which didn't pay much. So I'm sleeping and people are banging on my door. And I wake up and they're like, there's a limo downstairs. I've been waiting for you. I'm like, oh no, I can't believe it. So I said, tell him I'll be down 10 minutes. I ran and jumped in the shower, went downstairs, got in the limo, and there's James Mitchell sitting there, and I know who he is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he must think I'm like one of those bratty little young actors who've come into soap operas now. And this is like, I get in and I go, I'm so sorry. And he just like, it's all right. Just get in. Let's go. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, so we go and do the appearance, and then we have to drive back together. It was not a great. I felt so bad, terrible. Flash forward. This was 1984. Okay, flash forward to my first day on the set of All My Children. This is 1997 now. So it's 14 years later. I see him in the makeup room, and I woke up to James, and I say, "Oh, hey, James. I don't know if you remember me, but we met at an appearance years ago." Oh, I remember. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was that bad. It's like 14 years later, he's still like, traumatized by it. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. Hopefully I'll have the opportunity to make it up to you. So anyway, so that was it. But it was a great way. And then we became very dear friends.
Yeah.
My technical engineer is saying something. What?
But that's not doing anything.
Really? He's not doing anything?
No,
okay.
You don't need it.
Okay. All right. The light. She's saying, how about does this work now? Is that a little better?
Oh, there we go. All right. We can see all of the features.
No, because I'm backlit. That's what I was thinking. But okay.
You're fine.
So anyway,
I have to fight with my window light all the time as well. I'm in practical darkness.
Yeah. Let me see. I'm turning this light off there. Go ahead. All right.
So way back when, 1997, you walking in onto the set the very first day, you already had this interaction with James Mitchell, but otherwise, what was the feeling? This is a show that had already been on for several decades.
Sure.
Was it like walking into a well-greased machine full of family and love? Was there immediate drama? What? Tell me, take us back.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. It was funny because I was really excited to do it. I was offered the job. The timing was perfect. My daughter had just been born. My daughter Aria, who's now 25, she had just been born, and we went back east for her baptism with my family. on Long Island. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. And right before I left, my manager called me and said, all my children is wondering if you're going to be in New York at any time because they'd like to meet with you about a role that's coming up. And I said, perfect timing. I want to be there this weekend. I can meet them on Monday. I can stay for an extra day or two. And that's exactly what happened. I went in and I was real excited because I knew a lot of the actors on the show from the years of personal appearances and Emmys and everything else. So I was excited because I felt like, wow, this is going to be like the All My Children's summer camp, It's like get to play with them, my friends, for 3 months on a show. That's kind of what it felt like. And when I went in there, everybody was very welcoming to me. And I went up to Ruth Warwick as well and introduced myself to her. She didn't know me. I had never met her before, but I mean, she was an icon, and she was like the last living member of the Mercury Theater. That she's in Citizen Kane. I grew up watching that, and one of my top 5 most amazing American movies in my estimation. So I went up and introduced myself to her. She was excited to hear me basically lauding her with praise. She was like that. She was a diva. She was a star, and she knew it. And anyway, but then I went and worked with like David Canary. And I'll tell you, my first day working with David Canary, whom again, I love him. I love him till this day. The man was the salt of the earth, just the consummate professional and just a dear, dear man, And I always said that, there are definitely on shows that I've worked on, some of the people on there are divos and divas, and they carry themselves that way. And they can be kind of difficult on set at times. There are people on All My Children that had the opportunity to be that, and certainly the right to be that if they wanted to. David Canary is one of those people. Never. One of the most gracious people you'd ever know. And my first day working with him was both with him as Adam and as Stuart. And we did like 2 or 3 episodes of all our scenes together. So it's like 5 hours of me playing opposite both characters and working with him. And after it was done, I said to my wife at the time, I said, I feel like I just sat through a master class. This guy was amazing, amazing. And I will always remember that, working with him. And right up to the last days that I worked with him on the online version for iTunes and for Hulu, I loved the man. He was just an extraordinary human being and truly one of the most dashing people that you ever saw on daytime. Really is one of the most dashing. Truly.
That is absolutely wonderful to hear. For me, Stuart Chandler is a character that has always stuck deep inside me as a person.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you exactly why. It's something that I've tried to analyze within myself as best as possible. And the best that I can come up with is the absolute pure love that exists within Stuart is something that I always aspired to. As a role model, something that I wanted to be as an adult in my life, was somebody with this unlimited capacity for love like Stuart. And so,
goodness, just pure goodness,
pure goodness.
Kindness
David
of heart.
Canary was just so good at playing those 2 roles. I mean, you didn't even think about Adam when he was Stuart. You didn't think about Stuart when he was Adam. You were just so. It was like almost felt like 2 different actors were playing them.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true. And he was so brilliant at it, both characters. And to be there opposite him playing both characters, that's what I walked away. I was like, I really feel like I sat through a masterclass. He totally lost himself in both characters. It was beautiful to watch, just beautiful. And I just had to stay in my character and be there with him during it. But afterwards, it was like, wow. And that never faltered. That never diminished in any way during all the years I worked with David. He's just a brilliant actor and just a kind man, really. It was very sad when I heard that he had passed. Obviously he was struggling with Alzheimer's, and it was becoming evident on the set, especially when we came back and did it for the online version. They were giving him less and less material because of that, and rightfully so. Yeah. I could tell at times it was becoming a burden for him, to do it. And it was hard for me when we working with him and he would forget what scene he was in and, start saying lines from 2 scenes prior or, and because he would get angry with himself. And that was hard to see, that he he would become angry, upset with himself, never at anybody else, never heard him get angry with anybody for all the years I worked with him, but with himself he did. And I remember speaking to his wife about it at that time, and she shared with me, she believes, because David was offered a position on the Denver Broncos out of college to play professional football.
Wow.
Because he played that in college, and he turned it down to be an actor, but he had played football throughout his college years and earlier, and he had several concussions. She truly believed it was as a result of that he suffered from the Alzheimer's.
Oh, okay.
And that would make sense. A lot of people say that does have that kind of an effect.
It's definitely a known and prevalent problem within the NFL even today. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we know a lot about that dreaded disease because my father-in-law, Matthew's grandfather, we lost him to Alzheimer's, and we watched the process, and it is horrid.
Yeah.
Wow. But kudos to David Canary for wanting to give us so much for so long. As much as those characters mean to us, it also means a lot to you all who are stepping into these shoes more often than somebody playing a primetime character or somebody playing a Marvel superhero or something like that. The number of hours on set in these people's lives has got to be, I can only assume because I've never done it myself, but it must be a thing to just make it super plain.
It is, and it's just like I said earlier, it's just the opportunity to develop a character on that level for years. Keep developing the character. When you do a movie, you have a beginning, middle, and an end. When you do a play, you have a beginning, middle, and end. On daytime, you have a beginning, and you hope for a very long middle, and perhaps maybe never an end. You don't know until you end. So there's a very big difference when you get to develop a character for as long as you had. And I will say this, kudos to the writers. I don't know what writer during the course of the history of the show created the dual character of David, of Adam and Stuart, but it was brilliant. It really was brilliant because there was such opposite contrast to one another. And yet the Stuart character was his conscience. He was his kind of Jiminy Cricket, in a way, so he really was. And that, I think, to see that relationship and those characters that were so separate from one another, yet so intrinsically connected, to see that in the writing of those characters and the way that David developed those characters was really a brilliant idea. It was wonderful, and he just ran with it.
To trust him to be able to nail it for so long as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he always did. I think that's interesting too, to think that when you saw him in the end, when he was struggling with the amount of material he had, which wasn't that much, they put him in a scene every once in a while, too, not a lot of dialogue, but to see that this was a man that right up until the end of All My Children on ABC, he'd come to work knowing 40, 50 pages of dialogue, and he was the consummate professional, and he never thought that he would be struggling with his lines. So that's, that really has a lot to say with him as a professional, also as a man, and a man of integrity when it came to doing the work, so.
Well, the chat absolutely is just dripping with love for David Canary and everything that he brought to us, and
absolutely, for good reason. Yeah.
My goodness. Such love. Oh,
so let me ask you a question, Vincent.
Sure.
When last time you were on a soap, was it as fast paced as what we're told it is today, where it's just so crazy fast?
Well, I've been doing them even just recently. I was on Bold and Beautiful. I was on Days of Our Lives a few years ago for a couple of years. So yeah, it's a huge difference from when I first started in 1983 on Guiding Light. Huge difference. Back then, you really did do one show per day. You did one show. And some shows, like All My Children, I wasn't on that show at the time, but I knew it from the people that I knew that worked on the show, like Michael Knight and Darnell and others doing appearances with them. They shot that show in order, in sequence. They would do a full dress rehearsal from one scene to the next, to the next, and next, from set to set. I never understood that. That seemed crazy to me. And then they'd all meet on set for the notes. They would adapt those notes, and then they would start from the beginning and do the whole show. Guiding Light, we did it just by set. So they would go from one set, do all the scenes, go to the next set, do all the scenes, and then they would edit it together, that seemed more practical than the other way to me. I don't know if they were saving money in editing. I don't know. It was crazy. But back then, doing one show a day was still challenging, especially if you had a lot of material in that show. But as we went on over the years, thank you. She's getting my water ready. Thank you, baby. I think she thinks my throat, I'm getting dry or something. It's good. She is helping. As we went through, going on through the years, especially when I was on All My Children, it kept changing. We kept changing the format. And by the time we finished All My Children, we were doing about 130 pages to 120 a day, 130. When we were doing it just a show a day, it was like 60 pages, basically, 55 pages. So we were doing more, and they were combining episodes. So we would do about 8 shows a week. That was kind of the standard at that point. And that went on the same thing when I did Days of Our Lives. They were doing that. And when I first came on Days of Our Lives, our out time was like 7 o'clock. Well, they renewed the contract on NBC, and they said, no, we want you guys done at 5 o'clock, because they don't want to be paying any overtime to the crew. So now we were smashing everything together as fast as possible. You got one take. If you were lucky, you got 2. That was it. Never 3. It was like, oh my goodness. I mean, I would say but it's interesting because I've had the opportunity to work on so many shows to see the differences. And I noticed this was a big difference when I worked on Young and the Restless. Young and the Restless, the way they shoot their show is that they do a master shot typically, where people come into a room or whatever the case may be. And then they quickly go to close-ups. They're back and forth, so that the audience, they engage the audience immediately as quickly as possible in the close-ups of the actors. But the benefit of that too is that if somebody goes up on a line, which occasionally does happen, they don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. They literally cut. Yeah. They go, okay, we're going to pick it up here. They'll go back 2 lines before, and they pick it right up. So they move the rapidity of the process. Is definitely works to their advantage in that way. So different style.
Like the talent it takes to being able to put soap on with the limited budget and time that's available now. Sure. I mean, it's to be applauded. Everybody that's able to still pump out 5 episodes a week. Of watchable content.
Yeah, I don't say this in a negative way, but it's kind of like the whole thing, whether it's the writing process, the production, the acting. It's kind of like the fast food version of the entertainment industry. You're just getting out there. But hopefully we're in the higher echelon of quality in that regard. But because considering that they write those shows, I mean, they do how many 240 shows a year? Yeah, I think 250. That's a lot of shows, man. Yeah. That's a lot.
And they have a lot of dark weeks too.
Yeah, they have their dark weeks too, sure. But especially the hour shows. Bold and the Beautiful is a half an hour show, so it's not as much content, but it's a great show. It really is. They do a fantastic job on that show.
It's good. It's great. It's wonderful. But ultimately, good things always do come to an end, like All My Children did. Yeah. And what an end it was. The final story, the final arc, in which I feel as though David Hayward was in the middle of just the plot device, pushing everything toward the finale, bringing all of our loved ones back to life, dangling 2 final identities in front of Tad's face.
I know. Bringing Stuart back to life. That was the big one.
Stuart back to life, which to me is the act that would forgive David Hayward of all of the dastardly and evil things that he had done.
You would think so. You would think the not so good people of Pine Valley would show some appreciation. But
no, whatever reason. Oh, thank you for bringing all of our loved ones back to life. You're going to jail.
Dr. Evil, still Dr. Evil in the eyes of them, but I used my evil to bring back one of the greatest, most loving characters in Pine Valley. I mean, for heaven's sake, give me some credit.
David Hayward was just a misunderstood villain a little bit. And I think the main thing that David Hayward always wanted was to have children to love him and be able to love back. That's all he really ever wanted was a family. True.
And that sort of brings in the whole thing. We started talking a little bit about Vanessa and the introduction of Vanessa onto the show, because the bringing Marge Doucet on to play that character really helped to form, to fashion the different qualities of Dr. David Hayward, because they gave him a past. They gave him a history to show who he is, why he is the man that he is today, on the show. Mm-hmm. And I went to them. I went to the producer at the time, Jean Dario Burke, and also to the, Angela Shapiro was the head of the network for daytime. And I asked them to bring somebody on the show that would help to fill in for the audience what my history was. Because at the time I had come back, I did the show for the 3 months and I left. I left for like 5 months. They offered me a 3-year contract, but it wasn't the time. I couldn't do it because of personal issues with my child down in Los Angeles. So I turned them down and everybody thought it was crazy. But they came back 5 months later and I was able to remedy that situation with my younger daughter at the time. And I was able to accept the job and go back to New York. And they did that because everybody saw the potential in the character. I did too. From the moment I started playing David, I loved it. And we all saw the potential, but I felt that after 6-8 months of playing the character, I felt we were squandering that, what was really special about the character, because Dr. David didn't have any personal connection to anybody in Pine Valley until he came, except for Allie, who came there to try and get back. The actress that was there, Ala Karot. And because of that, I saw that the audience could easily start seeing David as a nuisance. And that's all. Just like, oh, here he comes again. He's in this person's face. He's doing this problem. He's creating this problem right now. Instead of understanding who he is, why he is the way that he is, we needed a history. So when I went to them, they took it to heart and they went to the writers and they came up with Vanessa, which was brilliant, really was brilliant. And that was the turning point for my character, honestly, was when you came to realize, especially her first day on the show, this was really fun. I loved playing this moment with her. I see Vanessa for the first time at a party that Erica is hosting, some kind of charity event. I see her across the room and the audience sees my expression looking at her like, what the, they like, what's the deal with that? And then she's out in the parking lot, Vanessa, and she has a heart attack out in the parking lot. She collapses to the floor. Erica's there. She goes, oh my gosh, oh my God. She's like, okay, just hold on, I'll get some. And then I come walking out in the parking lot. She goes, oh, thank God, Dr. David, you're here. Dr. Hayward, please help this woman, I'm just looking at her like, die. And I'm like, I literally step over her and walk away. And Erica's like, what? So the audience has no idea who she is, why I just did what I did. And then she's in the hospital afterwards. She's been, rescued, I guess you could say. And I go into the room and that's when I first confront her as my mother. And they come to realize that she's my mother. But the turning point for that was the beginning of it. But the turning point was when, I don't know if you remember any of this, but when Erica had me held captive in her basement and I had she put my hand in a vice, okay, because I'm a surgeon, so that's a big deal, world-renowned cardiologist, my hand in a vice. And she's like, basically, this is, this was after, I believe, after her face got ripped out, I think, I don't remember. But she has me down there because she wants to know why I am the man that I am. And she holds me captive down there for like 5 days. And finally I break and I share the whole story about how my father and my mother, I was in love with both of them very much, thought they were very much in love with each other. Came to find out that my mother was cheating on my father, and that my father, I'm watching this as an 11-year-old boy outside their bedroom, them fighting, and my father taking a gun and putting it up to his head, and my mother egging him on, saying, do it, do it, do it. Oof. And I'm, as an 11-year-old boy, watch this, and then my father shoots himself. I go running in, and my father bleeds out in my arms. And for that reason, I'm getting chills actually saying this right now. Wow. For that reason, I hated my mother because I saw who she really was. And from that moment on, I became a world-renowned cardiologist because I believe for that reason, I was fighting death from that day forward. So every person that I saved and kept alive, I was bringing back my father on some level, you know.
And that's
some
David
symbolic
Hayward
way.
wanted kids and to save everybody's life.
That's right. So that brings us back into that. Is that for me, it's almost like anything when anybody that's ever been in a family that you hear about this all the time, people that have had abusive backgrounds, you do whatever you need to do to break the cycle in the next generation. That's your responsibility, not to carry it on. And I think that in that way was Dr. David's way. He wanted to have that, to give the opportunity. And it's a shame that the way that the show ended, that he never got that closure, but he did have a son that he was never told was his son. That was on the online version.
Oh no, I didn't. I had forgotten that detail. I remember David and oh goodness, I'm bad at remembering names on the spot.
Yeah, me too. It was Lindsay Hartley.
Yes, brilliant actress. Absolutely love her. Cara. There we go.
Yes,
Cara and Griffin Castillo. Yes.
with
their late show hookup, and David Hayward never found out that it was his kid. Oh, bummer.
Yeah, no, because
David just had little windows of being able to be an attentive, good father. He only had little windows. He had a tendency to mess it up, but
yeah.
But he had little windows. You know, he had Marissa, he had Babe.
Yeah.
That's right.
And he had.
Yeah, that's right. I had Marissa as well. That's right. I came to find out about that and Babe, but I never got to raise a child. They were always like older. They were older when I found out that they were like that little chip they put in your back, and your back of your top of your spinal column. It's like you have two children, and but Anna, we had Leora. We had Leora, Anna and I.
Anna and
Leora tragically,
and
that is
another
ironic twist of fate that Leora died of a heart ailment, and that I wasn't able to save her. You know, and because I wasn't allowed to, Dr. Joe Martin wouldn't let me in the operating room.
You were in there screaming how to do it, and they just wouldn't listen.
They wouldn't. That's absolutely right. So I believe they killed her. That's it.
Well,
to this day, I can't let it go.
No, how could you? How could you? And the fans in the audience can't let it go either. That time in the early 2000s, David Hayward and Anna Devane is definitely something that we need to dig deep into, especially with our regular fan content who come to us for General Hospital Talk, which Anna's still around.
Is on. Say hi to Erin.
Oh, Erin is on. Hi, Erin. How you doing, sweetie? She's a huge Anna fan.
Yes.
Huge.
Yes. Anna and David.
Anna and David, yes. So definitely. I mean, it was wonderful working with Finola. I mean, she's an outstanding actress in every way. And you know, it was a really good combination of those two characters together, especially her being somebody in law enforcement, and then my character who's always bending the law,
right.
You know, and she's like, what should I do? Should I hold him accountable for this, or but we definitely we had a great time. It was a fun storyline to play, and we actually, it was very strange. Our characters were bookended by two major events in New York City. Actually, our first date on the show with David and Anna was on 9/11 when it happened.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And we were the first scenes up that morning while everything was happening. And we had gone into our dressing rooms before anything started happening, before the first plane hit the tower. We were in my dressing room running our lines, and it was our first date. So it was flirtatious. It was fun, playful. We were excited to do this. Went into the makeup room, and that's when the first plane hit the tower, and somebody ran in and said, turn on the news. And we watched it. We were seeing it in there, but it looked like, because it was a long shot wide, it looked like the building was just scorched in one place, and it looked like maybe a small plane hit it. Nobody knew at that time. And I remember somebody saying, wow, his private plane must not have seen it. I'm saying, it's 110 miles visibility out there. It was intentional, whatever happened. We went up on set, running the scenes with the director in rehearsal, and then the next one hit and all the crew was watching on the monitors. And everything changed. Everything changed from that moment on. And they try to keep us going. And I remember Finola and I, because we were like, what the hell is going on? Because we realized it was a passenger liner. It wasn't just a small plane. And they're trying to keep us going, and the mood and the scenes would change. She and I literally looked at each other at one point, going, what the hell are we doing? what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
we're doing this, we're continuing right now. And then once the first tower fell, that was it. Then mayhem. And they stopped production. They called a cast and crew meeting on set. And Nadine Aronson, who's one of the producers on the show, whom I love, she said a prayer with all of us holding hands. And as we realized that we were under attack, and we called off the show production because a lot of the crew was being called to ABC News after that point. So that was the first day. Our last day working on the show together, there was a major blackout in New York City in the middle of our scenes.
Everybody went into mourning.
They literally, yeah, that's what it was. And nobody knew what was happening. People thought it was another terrorist situation. I don't know if you remember this, but it was a blackout that went all the way up to Canada. It was like the whole Northeast. This grid was out. So that was our last day working together. We had to come back. She had to come back like a day later or 2 days later after the lights went back on to do those scenes. I'm like, that's kind of crazy that our entire time working together on the show were bookended by those two huge events in New York. So, but yeah,
New Yorkers would have PTSD from the first thing. That they would automatically think, okay, something. Now what?
They did. Absolutely. And there were people in the crew that were very emotional because they thought it was happening again. Of course they did. It would make sense, you know. It was a strange time. It was strange. But yeah, I loved working with her, and I love the storylines, the characters, the development.
Everything in between must have been just happiness and joy.
It was, except for the storyline of Leora dying. That was torture, because that went on for so long. And at one point, we both looked at each other and said, "Is this even entertaining anymore?" Because we just couldn't help the audience being like, "Oh my gosh, we're going to go through this again, another episode." Yeah. It was tough. It was really tough. But you know, she's a fantastic actress, and so she brings it. She kills it every time she comes on. That's all.
And the promotional steps that ABC took to push the couplings of the time, is something that the fans fondly remember, and it still lives forever on YouTube. Of just
there's some commercials that they shot and everything. Yes, that's right. They were fun. They were really fun. And it was kind of interesting because they also had a poster that was all over New York at bus stops and on the subway of the two of us, where I'm like sleeping behind her and her eyes were open looking at us. It says, you know, do you sleep? And I forgot what was written on it. It was something like, what do you do when you're sleeping next to the man? Is he the enemy or whatever? It's some weird stuff like that.
What do you do when you're sleeping with a man you can't trust?
That's right. So that's basically what it was. And it was like, these were posters all over New York. I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
Apparently Aaron had the poster.
Yes, Aaron does have the poster. I know that for a fact. And I believe she even has it signed. There are a few people like that. Yeah. See, I can't see what you guys are seeing as far as writing, unless I don't know if I have the ability to do that.
No. I have a separate window open that has the YouTube chat flowing.
I can't see it either.
Y'all are completely reliant on me. I can flip through. And most of it is just a reaction to us talking.
Yeah, there you go. Okay,
but there's been some questions. People are very curious to know if you still keep in touch with the people who played your children. And siblings, I guess. They mentioned Leo and Josh Duhamel. I don't know.
No, I don't. I haven't seen them in many, many years.
Well, it's time for a reunion.
Yeah, that would be
Everybody
fun.
reach out to me on Instagram. I'll make it happen.
Alexa Havens was wonderful as Babe. She really was. And I can't remember the names of everybody, honestly, to be honest with you.
So many years, so many scenes, so much work, so many actors, so many characters.
I would say this. Marissa, the actress who played Marissa, and I'm sorry, I feel I'm at a loss.
Oh, they will tell us in just moments on the chat. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can look her up. I know I have her phone number, or at least I had her phone number from when she was on. I could look up her name on my phone. I saw her on the Boys. She played on the Boys, and she was freaking awesome.
Just amazing.
Killed it. She was on for like about 5 episodes or so in the first season, and I was like, wow.
Sarah.
Yeah. What was it?
Sarah Glendon?
No, I don't think. No, Marissa wasn't Sarah.
No. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. We often butcher names and don't remember things often here on the top floor anyway. Don't feel bad. Is there any character type off of David that you wish that you had an opportunity to play?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Is there a character type that you've always wanted to play that you haven't had the opportunity to yet? Melissa from the chat asks.
I would love to play like a lawyer at some point.
Oh, hey.
I've never played a lawyer. I played a police officer, police captain on Homeland. So I have played that, and I would love to play that again. I would love to play more law enforcement.
Yeah.
So those type of characters, yeah. Because honestly, that's one thing that I wish I had done when I was younger. If I wasn't an actor, was maybe get my law degree and be a lawyer. Some people say I'm really good at arguing. So, but hopefully I would put it to a good cause, argue for people that can't argue for themselves. So yeah, I'd like to play characters like that. I got to play in a Western for the first time. I never thought I would play in a Western, and I did get to do that. And I just did it again. I shot it.
Perfect.
Another episode. I shot another episode of that just about a little over a month ago.
Yeah, if you think Maurice Bernard looks good in a cowboy hat, you haven't seen Vincent Irizarry in the cowboy hat.
Yeah, that's right. It's really funny. Yeah, Maurice would look good in anything, that's for sure. Yeah. So anyway, those are characters. I did play a soldier in Heartbreak Ridge.
Yeah.
I would love to do some more movies like that.
Mm-hmm.
More roles like that.
All right.
Yeah, they're great characters. I love characters.
All right, I'll do everything I can for you. I'll tweet it out.
Good, get it out there.
Just be like, hey, Vincent's looking.
Yeah, right. You do it like one of those like games where you like put the hats on. It's like a little board thing, and you have a magnet like hat that you put on. You could keep doing that. Here's me with a military hat.
There we go. And then,
with a cowboy hat.
He's played a ball player. He's played.
Yeah, that's true.
True. Oh my goodness gracious!
Well, I tell you, a lot of the fans, including us, we would love to see Dr. David Hayward go to Port Charles. Oh my gosh! I mean, Anna's there already.
I know, and we do have that connection. But
and Alex is supposed to be dead, but in Port Charles, no one ever really dies, so they could bring back Alex too. And I'm sure that you've done some kind of devious thing to the two of them that you still have secret.
Probably.
I mean, the writing definitely is there. The foundation is there. If only we had the power to make it happen ourselves, folks. It's something.
Yeah, people talk to me about. Said, why aren't you going out with John? Like I have it's like my choice. I'm not. It's not my show. We're the actors. We're just those cogs in the wheel. We're not. We don't make it. Yeah, that's all. So it's entirely up to them.
I mean, push it as much as you can, folks.
Sure.
You all on Twitter have far more power than we do.
Yeah. So we'll see. Anyway, but yeah, it would be great. I'd love to. And there's just apart from also getting to work with Finola again. I mean, there's some wonderful actors on there that I've seen their work for many, many years that I've never had the opportunity to work opposite. Maurice is certainly one of them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of them. So
you did his podcast, right? State of Mind?
Yes, I did.
I watched it. I watched it.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And we talked a little bit about it. I've only met him like briefly throughout the years. It was the first time that we really got down to have a in-depth conversation with one another. He was fantastic. Yeah, he was awesome. He was awesome. I loved it. I loved doing it with him.
Just his ability to throw it all out there and pull it out from his guests as well. Just there's no boundaries. And
yeah, absolutely.
It's a great
job with it. Yeah. So
wonderful time. What a wonderful time. I don't know.
Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, I'm searching here. People are mostly just reacting to what's going on here. We did get names. We got Amanda Baker, who played Babe, and Brittany Allen, who played Marissa.
Yes. Brittany Allen. That's right. Brittany, and she was wonderful as Marissa, and she was fantastic on The Boys too. She really was. It was very special to see that. Really so much so that when I first saw her, let me just say when I first saw her in the episode, I didn't even recognize her. And I think I may have seen her name in the credits. I was like, wait a second, that was Brittany? Oh my gosh. She just was fantastic. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
It's okay. I was just encouraging people to leave their questions in the chat. Anything that you wanted to know. We'll try to find out for you. And then were you on the show when they changed the actress who was playing Babe?
Yes.
Because that is something that sequence where they actually changed the actress what they edited together with one coming into the hug with Crystal and then pulling back, and it was the second. Brilliant.
Yes.
But that was your
Yeah,
idea,
that was-
right? You told editing to do that?
Yes, I did. No, of course. Yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah, sure. That was my idea. So why do that?
We thought
I
it was
take 2
brilliant.
episodes to tell something in 1 episode. Yeah, it was interesting. I was there on set when that happened. It was like, wow, that's different.
We
So
thought
yeah,
it was
great.
brilliant. I loved it.
What was that?
I thought it
You
was
thought-
brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think
did.
it had ever been done like that before. So yeah, it was very cool. So yeah, you know,
I don't think it's been done
constantly
since
evolving.
either.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I don't think it has been done like that either since, but yeah, it was a standout moment for sure. And I remember Bobby Eakes was like, this is going to be interesting, you know, and she was wonderful as Crystal as well. She did such a great job. I love Bobby.
I watched a lot of scenes this morning and last night with you and Bobby.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a great working relationship together. I never want to do anything too physical with her because she always hurt me. She like one time she slapped me in the face, real, which she wasn't supposed to, right? And I'm going, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "No, she didn't slap me in the face. She slapped me in the nose, which is even worse."
Oh, that hurts.
It wasn't like she hit my face; she hit my nose, and I was like, "Ah." And it was like my eyes were all teary and everything. Going, damn, I'm happy to break my nose. And then one scene that we had where she had this huge like explosion, like meltdown. Probably because I was drugging her and stuff, and she came to realize I was drugging her, some silly thing. So, but she had this meltdown. It was Christmas, and it was the Christmas tree was there, and she started taking the ornaments off the tree and throwing them at me. And she was supposed to throw down, you know, at the lower part of my body here. She threw one hit me right in the face, hit me and exploded in my face. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, don't put me in scenes where she has to like do anything physical with me. I'm always going to get hurt with her. My gosh.
David had a lot of physical things. Almost everybody on the cast either punched you or slapped you at some point.
Absolutely. Everybody. Or had sex with me.
Yeah.
Or had sex with me. Yeah.
You're going to love him or you're going to hate him.
That's right. That's right. And some of them happen in the same scene.
Or you're going to love him and hate him at the same time.
Yeah. That's right. And it's funny that you say it because B.H. Barry, he was our stunt and fight coordinator on the show for many, many years. And he used to brag all the time, says, "You put my kid through college," with all the times I was brought on the show to have fight scenes with you. So that's what he said. He's like, you put my kid through college. He was hired every week to come on the show to like stage a fight with us.
Did Dr. Joe ever hit you?
Dr. Joe, no. Dr. Joe never rose to that level of acrimony and hate.
He was a man.
Because if anybody would have made Dr. Joe hit it, if anybody would have brought that to Dr. Joe, it would have been David.
Yeah. Yeah, you would have thought that maybe when I tried to frame his son Jake for medicating Adam when I first came on the show, when I actually gave him the drug and then ran in and saved him with the norepinephrine, to bring him to the point of having a heart attack, and then I made it look like Jake had mismedicated him.
Yes.
You would think that he would have hit me then, but no.
I think so. All of it was just delicious to watch. I loved it so much.
Yeah, it was great. And I, especially like I said before, just developing a character from storyline to storyline in the different ways. I mean, the whole Libido Zone storyline was iconic. That was classic. That was classic.
Just unlocking the lust in everyone.
I know. It was just what was so wonderful about it was, and I said this at the time, I said, this is like a great acting class for all of us, the actors, because you're being given this opportunity to have this drug that opens you up entirely, so that whatever your desires are that are like dormant underneath, they come out. And it's like Opal, she's like on the floor of a yacht trying to pick up crumbs of food and eat it. She's like this, and it's like everybody. And then it's like Mateo was like angry and rageful about something. I got into a fight with somebody, and some people it was sexual, which was my character. So it was great to see that, to have like people have this overall condition that was imposed upon the character, where they allowed their libido to completely like open up. What do you really desire? It was great. It was very exciting. But I just love that moment where David, after he accidentally drops the flask because the waiter hits his arm and it falls in the punch bowl, and he takes it out. It's like, oh God. And then everybody's drinking, and he's at the end of the episode, you see him standing in the door frame of the yacht looking at the entire town of Pine Valley. He goes, "Well, drink up, Pine Valley." And it's like the next episode, all mayhem ensues. But that was a storyline went on for like a year. I mean, until my trial, and then it all came out, and I had to I think I lost my license for a while, or so. I can't remember.
Something blaming J.R. Chandler, something.
Yeah. What was that, Kat? What'd you say?
I think you lost your license more than once.
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah. I think it was also because I buried somebody on a beach somewhere.
Didn't kill him. You just buried him.
I didn't kill him. He was already dead, but I was using his cadaver for some experiment as a result of something. I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Created,
and that was a charge. Yeah. It was like harmfulness to a cadaver, I think, or something like that. I was like, that's not a good sounding.
A year and a half ago or so, I created a Twitter GIF game. Who's going to kill Peter August on General Hospital? And in it, I included Dr. David Hayward because I always enjoy including Dr. David Hayward on things, especially GH related, because I want you there. And that got some response from the people who were like, oh my God, David Hayward's on here. What's going on? Adding you. And you contributed to the conversation with the revelation that I had never considered before, that David Hayward is no murderer. He has never killed anybody.
Never killed anybody. And they call him Dr. Death, some people, for some reason. That's a misnomer. That's not really. Dr. Evil. I can see that in some ways,
But he push you to the brink of death.
Yes, absolutely.
But not all the way. If anything, he'll keep you going in his secret basement lab for the finale.
It's fine. Back to what we talked about, the whole introduction of Vanessa and how it really did inform the audience who he was, why he was the way that he was. It was because of that. And this is what I've always felt when you play a character, even if it's somebody that's evil or whatever the case may be, it's kind of your responsibility to have the audience find ways to empathize with you, to sympathize with you, because the person themselves believes that what they're doing is right. Even the worst type of person can rationalize, justify it on some level. So it really was, for me, very rewarding when people were taking my side over Dr. Joe Martin, on the show, like in their writings, they were like going, leave him alone, Dr. Joe. And I'm like, wow, I've really accomplished this with this character, because he's like the pinnacle of like virtue in Pine Valley, and that they were turning on him to support me. I'm like, thank you, audience.
It's those things that soften the character, that really make you think about him. And when it comes to a villain that has a really great and engaging backstory, you can always, step into it a little bit and kind of relate to your own villainous tendencies that you don't bring out into your real life.
Yeah.
Like, I drug that person. I would totally drug that person like David Hayward did.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But then there's, there was Vanessa, and then the relationship that grew between David and Bianca as well.
Yes.
With the issues and struggles that she had in her life, that David was there to support her through.
I love that. I love that they wrote that I was there to support her and help her through all of it. And then I was actually even there to help bring down the person that was, that had raped her. Yeah. That was also really great. I was happy to be able to do that. It was, and that was Will DeVry, actually, who did a fantastic job as that character. He did such a great job as that character. Our fight scene, that was one that BH had staged, was really great. It was such a great one. And I loved that he had me pick up this big tome of a book and smack him with it. And it was like, and I think it was like a legal book. And I'm like, here's the law right in your face. It was like
the cheesy action 80s line.
Yes, that's right. That's something that you would see like on I don't know, one of the nighttime shows. But it was great. And he did a fantastic job. But I loved being able to be there. I had so many wonderful scenes with Eden during that time where she was in her coming out period, and the ramifications of that and her relationships with others, that I'd be able to be there to support her. I love that. It was great. It was great. And also, obviously, working with Susan was amazing. Yes. We had such a great working relationship, Susan and I. I adore Susan, and and back to what I said earlier about working on shows where I've worked with some shows, some of the daytime shows where there are definitely divas and divos on there. And Susan and again David, two people that had the right to be that way if they wanted to be, were never that way. Gracious, professional, came on set. Everybody loved working with them. I had just written something recently on Instagram about Angela Lansbury, and about that. I really saw there for the first time. There's what I believe is pretty much inherent on every set, is there's a trickle down effect, that the stars of the show, how they are as professionals and as human beings, trickles down throughout the whole cast and the crew. Angela Lansbury was a consummate professional. She came. I was on that show the 7th season, I think, of the show, and when I went on that set, it was one of the most pleasant sets I'd ever worked on.
Oh.
The people were so wonderful and accommodating. Everybody in the crew was happy to be there. They would help you. They were there because she was that way towards them. But I could say on other episodic shows that I've done, it wasn't always like that. And it always starts with the main actor. I'm not going to say who it was, some guy that I worked with twice, and he was not that way. He was very grumpy and he snapped at people all the time. Didn't always know his lines. He would go up on his lines on my close up. And it was like, then we'd have to cut. And I'm going, I just want to get my lines out. I just want to say the line. It was tough. But that was really, the crew was hostile to the extras. They were hostile to one another. So that was it. And I would say that on that show, on All My Children, David and Susan, because of that, people were wonderful with one another. They really were. It had that trickle down effect, just like it did on Murder, She Wrote.
Trickle down to you,
so,
and then trickles down onto who you get to work with. That's brought in for David as well, like Leo and
sure.
family, and you get to bring that welcome to them as well. Show them the ropes for soaps. Yeah,
and I don't know if I brought this up before. Working with Marge, that was the second time that she played my mother. She was my mother on Guiding Light.
Okay.
She came on to replace Beverly McKenzie. She came on to replace Beverly McKenzie, another icon in daytime. And that was a tough role for her to come on and replace her. Because when Beverly left, it was like 6 months. They waited to bring on somebody. And she was perfect. She was perfect playing Alexandra. And when she auditioned for All My Children, I didn't see her at the time, but I went up to Judy Wilson, who's the casting director. And I always did this before when I knew someone was coming on to play opposite me as a main character. I asked her, said, so what do you think? Who did you see? And she said, well, Marge Doucet she came in. And I was like, oh, Marge is fantastic. And I mentioned that she was my mother on Guiding Light. She goes, oh, I don't know if they're going to want that she was your mother on another show. And I said, what does it matter? I mean, this is one big repertory company. Actors work opposite each other. It's a different character. I said, if she's the right person for the role, she should do the role. I hope they see that. And they did. They brought her on. And it was the same thing with Josh. I had the opportunity. I went downstairs to Judy and I asked if I could see the audition tape. It was on VHS at the time. I said, can I see the audition tape of the actors that were coming to read for the role? And I saw probably maybe about 6 or 7 actors play the audition scenes, and Josh was the standout without question. Yeah. And I said that to Judy too. I said, he's the one. There's no question. He was wonderful. He really was special. So.
That's my punk kid brother right there. Get him in here.
Yeah, really. That's right.
And David was so affected by the death of his little brother Leo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many tragedies on a soap opera. You wouldn't think that you would go through so many heartbreaks.
I remember
Pine Valley's a tough place.
I remember watching it, and then Greenlee had your mom had her on a side of a cliff, and you boys had to go save her, and
Vanessa was running amok, and she had kidnapped Greenlee, and Leo went to try and save her. Both he and I went to try and save her, and then Leo fell off the cliff. I think that's what happened. I mean, it was a long time. I kind of blocked it out because the emotion, the intensity.
That's what
fell off the cliff.
So,
bonked his head and drowned. It was a very sad time for everybody in Pine Valley.
Oh, man.
But it also gave Rebecca gave her a lot to play with after that as well. It was really good for her to be able to go on with that character. And it was great. Rebecca was wonderful as well. And we got to do some crazy stuff together on the show. We even got married on the show, which was kind of funny. That was kind of crazy. But it's funny the things doing for so many years and the growth and development of the characters. I mean, I've shared this a few times, which is kind of crazy. That Colby played Colby, okay, Brooke, she came on and played her when she grew up older on the online version on iTunes and Hulu.
Yeah.
Um, I delivered Colby. Okay, when Liza and Adam, they were in a cabin somewhere during a nor'easter, and I was there, and I delivered Colby. She was a breech birth. I had to deliver her there, so I brought Colby into the world. Then when we're doing the online version years later, and they've aged her now, she's like in her early 20s, they had me sleeping with her. And I went to Ginger Smith, who was really kind of, I knew she was being sincere about this because she was our history person. She knew everything about the show. And I walked up to her at one point before we did that show, and I read it, and I'm going, you do realize that I delivered Colby, right? I mean, and now I'm sleeping with her. Don't you think that's a little weird? She goes, oh, I don't think the audience is going to remember that. I'm going, give me a break.
Yeah.
You know,
the audience doesn't forget a thing.
They know everything. They remember everything. They know what hotel room number I was staying in, the number of the hotel room.
They could also tell you the color of your tie while you were staying there. Yeah, for sure.
I know, absolutely. I'm going, come on, you know that. They're like, well, they want to do this. I'm like, okay, just putting it out there.
It does kind of feel dirty, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did.
It feels dirty.
Feel a little dirty. Did. I guess they were pushing the envelope a little bit more when they went on to the online version. But it was fun. I mean, she was wonderful, too. I had a great time working with her. And it was her first scene. She never even kissed a person on camera before. Yeah. So it was a little strange. And we had, the night before, we went, it was a party that they were hosting, the Prospect Park in New York City. And I think it was as an introduction to the audience of the show being on. So we were there at that party, and we had to come into work the next morning, like 7 a.m. And that was going to be the scenes that we were doing. So, and I talked to her the night before, and I knew she was a little nervous. I said, look, I'm there for you. Whatever you need, we'll get through it. But we did it, and she was great. She was great. She just did it, you know. So.
You know what's amazing? Everybody's shocked how much you remember everything. Yes. And you do. Yeah, you do.
Yeah. And not everything. Names, people's names.
No.
Names are important. Names, events. Yeah. They compared you to Jackie Zeman, who I guess has a photographic memory and just remembers a whole heck of a lot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I just saw her.
We saw her the other night.
Yeah, we just saw her the other night. Yeah, we actually have a picture together with her. We posted a picture.
I got to go hang out where you're hanging out so I can run into all of these soap actors.
Yeah.
Hey, we were in your neighborhood.
That's
we
right.
didn't know you were so close.
Yeah, you know, we'll figure it out someday. A really good question that came through here from Nikisha Moore. This is something that I was brilliant. I wanted to pass it on to you. It's been a few years since the last time we saw Dr. David Hayward. What do you think he's up to right now, 2022?
Wow.
Hopefully he found out about that kid.
No, I know. Well, if he ever comes back on, that kid will be aged now, you know, so he may hopefully get to meet him at some point. You know, I don't know. I don't remember actually the way that it ended. I still was a doctor. I didn't lose my license again. On the online version. So I'm assuming
there was that 5-year time jump or something as well between ABC and Hulu.
Yeah, there was a bit of a time jump, and that was the strangest transition to begin with because.
Yeah. How did that feel? Did that still feel like you were working on All My Children, or was that a completely different thing?
No, it did. It was like a new form of the show. It was what made it difficult again because we didn't have the closure. When we were leaving All My Children, when All My Children was leaving ABC, Lorraine Broderick, who was the head writer at the time, who's amazing. She actually created Dr. David Hayward. They brought her back on the show for the last year or so that we were on ABC, and that's when the stories were so good. She knew the heart of that show so well, the characters so well. And she wrote an ending to the show. We had an ending episode for ABC, but then Prospect Park came and licensed the rights to it and wanted to develop it for online, for iTunes and for Hulu. We were being told for the last 2 months the show was on that we were going to be starting a week after the show ended on ABC. Then as we got closer to the ending of the show, it's 2 weeks later, it's 3 weeks later. And because we had that ending, they rewrote the entire ending, to leave it as a cliffhanger at the shooting at the mansion, at the Chandler mansion. And from behind in the secret passageway, so nobody knew who it was. So it was a cliffhanger. But we didn't go back to production again for almost 2 years. It was, we ended in, I don't know, was it in the end of the summer in 2011? And then we picked it up again. It was, I got the call from Ginger Smith in 2012, 2013, I think it was. I'm trying to remember the dates. It was a year and a half later. It was in December, and they were going into production at the end of February because the licensing rights was ending at the last day of February. First day of March, the licensing rights would be done. So they had scheduled to put us in production 1 week before so they could retain the rights. And this was in December. And I said to, okay, because she called me and said, we really would like you to come on. Would you be able to be on there? And I said, I'm open to it, sure. I said, but let me ask you, so where are we shooting it? She goes, well, we don't know yet. I said, so you don't have any production office or anything? She goes, no. I said, well, who are the writers? Well, we haven't gotten the writers yet. I go, you don't have any writers? You don't have a production staff? You don't have a studio? I said, nope, we don't have any of that right now. And I said, okay. And I knew that the sets had already been destroyed that were done for ABC, because I knew somebody that worked over that studio said they were putting through wood chippers. I'm like, dang, man, that was like a month after we ended ABC and we were supposed to go back on. I'm saying, well, that's not a good sign. They're destroying the sets.
Right.
We're being told that we're going to go on. So I said, so you don't have any sets either? She goes, no, we're going to have to start building sets. I'm like, this is the beginning of December. We're talking about the end of February. You can do this? Well, to her credit, in her magical ways, she's a brilliant producer. When I walked on that sound stage in Connecticut at the last week of February and walked through those sets and saw what they had done, read the scripts that they had written, and saw the cast all come together, I was like, this was a miracle. It was a miracle. She pulled that off. And it really was special. It really was. Those episodes were very well written, really well written. And great working with the cast again. But again, and then they got into a legal fight with ABC.
That's unfortunate.
And it was like $125 million lawsuit, and they had to shut down production. And again, it was another situation where we did it in May, but we were being told like every 2 weeks, we're coming back. No, don't. We're coming back. And I turned down 2 things because they said I couldn't do them. One was a series that Sonia Blangiardo created. She was a producer on All My Children, then she went on to be a director on One Life to Live, and she directs on General Hospital today, and even directs on Day of Our Lives. She wrote Tainted Lives, it was called.
Okay,
that's what it was. And she had written a character that she created for me, and I was told I couldn't do it because Prospect Park, it was an online series. They said it was competitive with them, so they wouldn't let me do it. So I had to bow out. That
doesn't make any sense. Okay.
Yeah. And then I was also, Bobby Eakes got me a co-hosting job for the Miss Georgia beauty pageant. It was televised, and it was going to be the 2 of us as co-hosts. And they wouldn't let me do that either because they said we were going to be back in production at that time. And we never went back into production. So I turned down 2 jobs, and we never went back into production. Then a week before Thanksgiving in November, they said, yeah, we're not coming back. And it was like, great. 2 jobs turned down. And then the audience, once again, didn't have the closure at all. We didn't have a final episode.
No. I'll have to go back and watch Prospect Park with a little bit more, with my adult brain rather than my young 20s brain, to see if I can appreciate it a little bit more.
It's a little steamier for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was ahead of its time.
That's exactly what it
is.
It was ahead of its time. I think if it was done today, it would be received completely differently and would have a much bigger audience.
People cheers. And Days of Our Lives went exclusively onto Peacock. So
yes, that's right. Like the Bay and the Bay, all of those are doing. The Bay is now on Peacock.
Studio City as well. Yes, yes. He
did a great job with that. He really did do a fantastic. We went to the premiere of that. We watched that. And he did a fantastic job. Really, the quality of that show, the writing, the performance is wonderful. Tristan is wonderful on that. I love Tristan.
Matthew and I watched it.
Yeah, the first season. The second was behind a paywall, so we didn't. But
I haven't seen the second season yet, and that's it. You have to pay for it, is what you're saying?
Yeah. That one they make you pay for. The first season was free on Prime.
Yeah. Well, I think whatever. I'm
just a man on a budget. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't want to support.
I got you. No, I would like to see it though. I would like to see it. I would like.
And we got a binge today.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, hopefully you're not getting a drag around when it comes to this potential Pine Valley primetime spinoff that Kelly Ripa was trying to put together. I don't know how far that got in the world of Hollywood.
Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. And I mean, my understanding was that it had more to do with the Canes and the Santos. Yeah, that was what it was about.
The Santos family, one that you didn't really interact with too much.
I didn't. No.
Yeah.
No, that's true. That's very true. But yeah, so I don't know. I didn't really hear much about it other than what everybody else was hearing about it, and then it just seemed like it just disappeared.
It kind of did.
You got in Maria's business a couple of times.
Yeah, I did.
Everybody got in Maria's business
to Pine Valley. I kept her hidden for a while there. Yeah.
As David does. It's just it's his move. It's his thing. It's what he does.
Yeah, that's right. That's what he does. He does things his own way. Okay. And people want to punish him for it. Come on.
I had an opportunity about a month ago to go see a personal appearance of Cameron Matheson.
Oh, good.
In Sacramento. He and Laura Wright were together. And it was great fun. And the audience asked him about Pine Valley as well.
Okay.
And he said he hadn't heard a word about it.
Nobody knows a thing.
No one has reached out to him with the possibility of being Ryan Lavery. So he didn't really know anything about it. Not really.
Yeah. I know. I mean, seemed like it was a small group of people that they were communicating with, I guess. But it was
the news just broke too early, is what happened.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, maybe they were trying to generate excitement. I don't know. That could.
Well, it did generate a lot of excitement. It did.
Yeah. I don't know.
Kidnapping is David's go-to move for flirting, says Melissa.
And drugging.
Drugging, flirting. But, it was flipped on its head. Erica Kane held him hostage, handcuffed him to something, forced him to confess things, and then ultimately fell in love with him. But, it's because Erica, she was the type that wanted to fix somebody at all times and just be adored, right?
That's true. And since she did that to me,
she never married David, though. She never married David.
Well, honestly, I kind of feel like that David and I, as the actor, dodged a bullet there, because typically, unless it was Jackson, anybody else who married Erica wound up dead at some point. So
there you go. You dodged it.
So I was grateful that we did get married. We enjoyed a great 1.5 year storyline together. But when they went in that direction, I'm like, hopefully I got some more longevity going on. So.
Oh my God, Susan Lucci. Lucci. I mean, cover of the Remembering All My Children People magazine. The heart and face of all of daytime television for a while. I would say the biggest soap star. I would look at that Erica Kane doll.
Here's my Erica Kane and her Merrick bridal gown. And the back of the box says, the back of the box, "I swear I am never going to buy another wedding gown as long as I live."
Lies.
That's her Scarlett O'Hara moment there.
Yes.
I will never go hungry again. I swear by God. So
when they said, "Hey, Vincent, we want you to work with Susan. We're writing a little ditty with you and Erica," was that just was that a cementing moment for you? Did that make you feel, oh my God, I'm going to be on this show for a while?
No, you never know that on these shows. You just never know. But I was, of course, very happy to do that, because I loved her as a person and as an actress. She was a professional, and I was very excited to work with her. And we had a great working relationship together. We really did. There was a trust that was there with each other from the moment we started working, and I just loved it. We had some really special scenes together that I was very grateful to have the opportunity to play opposite.
But you were more gentle in throwing her down on the bed than you were with the others.
Yeah, that's true. You had to be careful. There was one actor that was carrying Susan up the stairs one day, which the actors on daytime we were asked to do sometimes, carry the person someplace, and he banged her head on the banister.
Oh gosh!
We saw that on. It was one of those reels during Christmas with a blooper reel. they did that. They were showing us like, oh my God, they did like 3 times. They're like, ow, ow, ow. So I had to be careful with her. I was more gentle with her because she was so petite. She was so petite too. I mean, that's what whenever, and Walt is taller than I am. So, and we both would do this. I saw him do it also, but I was oftentimes bending down with my arms and my hands on her shoulders to be able to look at her because she's was so small. And I just, my heart goes out to her about her passing of Helmut, her husband. You know, they were together for decades, and just the two of them were inseparable, and just they built this beautiful life together. So yeah, I wrote her something about that, and she responded to it. Yeah, because I mean, he really was her protector. You know, without question, he was there. He was her husband, her lover, and her manager, and her chef, apparently. Because
her chef,
that's true. Because he was an amazing cook. That's how they met, from what I understand. She told me this years ago, that he was the chef at a hotel in Long Beach that she was going to. That's how they first met. But yeah, I loved working with Susan. She was amazing. And the storyline, and that was Agnes Nixon's idea to do that, to bring our characters together. And that was another person. Agnes Nixon was magical, a magical being. I can
only imagine.
Yeah, whenever she came on set, she would come occasionally to bring like friends of hers to come and watch the taping, you know, of a scene or two. And she was so quiet, you know, in the background, unassuming, you know, and she would be there just very gentle and very, you know, like quiet. But you realize this is the woman, everybody on that soundstage was there because of her. Everybody. But she didn't want to make her presence known in that way. She just was letting everybody do their job, and you wouldn't know she was there unless you walked past her, and it's like, hi. And then I had the wonderful good fortune of getting to work as an actor opposite her when we were leaving ABC. They had her come on the show one episode where she was in the hospital bed, and I had a scene with her. I had several scenes with her. And she was magical as an actress too. She just lit up the screen, just naturally. And she was telling me these wonderful stories in between takes. She was just a born natural storyteller. That's what she was. And that was her gift to the world. And I was fighting for a while trying to get her the what was it? The Kennedy Honors. Trying to get them to give her that award for her lifetime achievement, and it didn't happen.
She was groundbreaking. She would approach subjects that weren't being approached.
There was nothing like All My Children. Nothing like it.
Absolutely. Yeah, there were some storylines that were certainly taboo at the time that people didn't, you know, it was like that shouldn't be talked about. And I was even blindsided once. I did a radio talk show, and the person that was doing it with me on air was really critical of the show because of the lesbian storyline with Bianca. It was around that time. And I was like, you know what? I'm sorry, but this is supposed to be a representation of the world that we live in. And these are people that are experiencing that in our lives today. So I'm sorry, we live in a fallen world to begin with. Okay. So all the characters on the show have their issues in life and their struggles in life, and trying in some ways to be understood or you know, to be accepted. And I said, so that this is a reflection of that. We're not creating a fictional world where everybody's perfect and wonderful with each other. And I said, this is what she's going through, and she's deserving of compassion and to, you know, be treated with dignity and respect. So that was interesting, because I was taken aback, because I didn't think that was going to come up in that way, and that he was going to be so hostile about it. I'm going, no, you're not going to get me to go there with you. There's no reason to. I love the storyline, and I love what she's doing with it, and I think it's important to bring it out. That's all.
You'd fight as hard as Agnes Nixon would.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that's, you know, it's an interesting thing, because you have that where you have some people that look at storytelling, and just the fact that I would be in places, okay, and there were people that knew that I played Dr. David Hayward. They were critical of me as if I was my character. That they can't disassociate the fact that this is a fictional character that I create. Okay. and I even said this to one person. I said, do you honestly think I go home and get on my knees every night and ask God to forgive the acts of my character? It's not that. I'm an actor. This is storytelling. And I'm like, but if I was playing a biblical story and I was playing King David, and then I order to have Uriah killed on the front line to cover up the fact that I slept with his wife and sired a child with Bathsheba, that would be okay because that's a biblical story, right? I said, we're fallen humanity. Everybody has issues. Nobody's perfect. And that's basically it. I mean, and that's something that I've at times throughout my life where I was even in a church. I was asked to be part of a holiday Christmas performance. This was years ago. And I did that. And the lighting designer, young guy, said his mother was in the audience and she was offended that I was in the show because of Dr. David Hayward. I'm like, what? Really? Yeah, she couldn't believe that you were invited to be a part of the show. I'm going, why? Because of Dr. David Hayward? I mean, and that's happened numerous times. There are people, I had a dear friend of mine and his mother, very sweet. She was very sweet. Her friend didn't think it was appropriate that he was friends with me because of Dr. David Hayward. Because
he's playing that evil man.
I know. I'm like, what? And I said to them, I said, what does she watch? That she does. There aren't antagonists and protagonists. Every story she watches on television has that. I'm like, what the hell? It's bizarre.
It really is. It's something I think unique to soapdom as well. I mean, I'm sure there's crazy cuckoo fans out there for all kinds of different franchises. But when it comes to the soap actor walking down the street and being berated for something that his character did is a lot higher than somebody who plays a villain in something else.
That's happened to me. Yeah. That's happened to me where people on the street say hostile things to me because of what my character has done or doing. It happened with me on Guiding Light, which was very different because I had never done TV before. And when I'm standing there on a street corner at a red light and somebody next to me starts getting into it because I'm taking Beth away from Philip, which was the super couple, leave them alone. I'm like, okay, I'm just crossing the street.
I'll tell the writer.
I'll let them know. I'm trying to get them. I'm like,
by the way, my name's Vincent, right?
Yeah, I know. It's bizarre. It's strange. It's like they can't disassociate reality from fiction. It's storytelling. That's what it is. So
I guess it just goes to show the investment and the passion that the people have. Along with that is also the passion of soap fans can also be hard to match. Personal appearances and conventions just prove that. Right now, there's a mess of Zooms happening every week with all kinds of different actors that are incredibly popular. I mean, if you can reach out to Finola Hughes for us, get her on this thing, we could charge everybody $20 and make a killing.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. That's true. Yeah, we could do that. That would be great. I mean, I haven't seen Finola in years. I think the last time I saw her was at a Soap Opera Digest party that they were celebrating their years in publication. That was the last time I saw her. Occasionally I see her children on Instagram or something, and it's like, it's amazing to me. And the same thing with Kelly and Mark, where I see their children on there and to see how quickly and how they've grown so much. And
where does the time
adults?
Eva LaRue with her daughter. Her daughter was born just a few weeks after my son Elias, and now he's 20. He's going to be 21 next month. And and so she's going to be 21 coming up too. And to see her, she's grown. She's so beautiful. Her daughter, it's just, so it's great. I mean, it's amazing the passage of time. That so much time has passed. It doesn't feel like that, but it has so much so that these babies have grown up to be young adults now. It's pretty cool.
And through the real passage of time as well. None of them got hit with the SORAs, the sudden soap opera rapid aging syndrome or anything.
That's true. That's true.
Where they skip the ugly years and become adults.
For real.
Well, chat compliments you. Well-rounded actor comes out of nowhere, but a true compliment. So take that.
I will. I'll take it. It's a heart.
Anyway. Jacarius
how many children do you have?
Oh, sorry, what's up, Ma?
I have 4 children, and I have 2 granddaughters, and I have another grandchild on the way.
Hey, wonderful!
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I have 2 granddaughters. They're 2 and 3 years old.
That's awesome.
And my 4 children.
And you have a birthday.
And my birthday's coming up in less than a month.
Well,
so
yes, your birthday. Your birthday's next month.
Yes, November 12th.
Yeah, and my eldest child is November 19th. He'll be 40.
Oh, okay.
And I am just so damn mad at him for getting to be 40. How can he be 40?
I know, is that crazy? I know. I haven't gotten them that old yet. My oldest is 33. And he's my son.
Yes, you have gotten that old because you're older than me. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
I will be 63. That's what I'm going to be. So.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. I'm 61.
On par. You're practically the same age. What are you two doing?
We are the same age.
There you go. Same generation, at least.
This will probably be a challenging question to answer, unless you already have it locked and loaded and ready to go because you've been asked it 1,000 times. Favorite story that you played? Is there one that you could isolate as, this is the pinnacle, this is my most favorite thing that I had done as David Hayward?
That's interesting. I think I've touched on some of them right now. The one where the bringing of Vanessa, certainly, and development of that storyline, and which led into the relationship with David and Erica, and then her accident where her face got ripped up in the car crash in the snow, in the blizzard.
The art itself, everything.
And I took her to Brazil to Dr. Faxinella, which is kind of interesting. Dr. Faxinella, to restore her face, her beauty. And she was recovered so well. And 2 days later, we were having dinner together without her mask on, her Phantom of the Opera mask. But it was those were great storylines, and also the libido zone storylines, definitely. And I think the relationship with Anna, without question, because that had so many peaks and valleys as far as the relationship is concerned.
Which needs to be started up again.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll see. So anyway, they were great. Those were great storylines. I loved it. And,
it sounds like just the entire journey, the arc, one thing leading into the other.
It really was, because it was like years of great stories going one into the next, and the whole libido zone one, and how that developed with my relationship with Dixie as well. Being acclaimed again, brilliant actress on the show, and so that was great with our relationship, and the complexities of those characters and the relationship, how they interacted with one another. I loved it. It was so well written for so many years, the show. Because I could say that honestly, that there are shows that I've done in the past, like Guiding Light was a good example of that, where when I came back as my twin brother, Nick McHenry. Nick McHenry. I look like a McHenry to you.
Not at all.
So, but I know.
Just put on an accent.
But I was, and that should have been the first clue that I wasn't really McHenry, because I came to find out I was taken at birth, and I was actually a Lupanacek. But on that show, that was tough, because in the beginning it was so well written. It was a great character. I loved playing it for several years, but they went through so many executive producers while I was on the show, and so many head writers, that by the end of my term there, the last year and a half, they lost sight of the character. It wasn't the character anymore. And it's tough when you're working through that, because you're going to the producer and say, what's going on? What's happening here? Then you're finding yourself in stories that are more plot driven, the character driven. Yeah. Having you do things that your character wouldn't really do. That was tough. So that it was obvious it was time to leave at that time. But I never really had that experience on All My Children. All the years I was on, the writing was always so good for him, for David. Yeah. And I was very grateful for that, and I mean, it lived up to the expectation of when I was on for the first 3 months, that we all saw the potential of the character. Yeah. And I'm happy that I had the opportunity to speak to the producer and the head of daytime at the time, to give them my impression that we were kind of going off track in the beginning of bringing him back on. And that they took it to heart, because then the character exploded. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Well, so, Kelly wants to know, what do your grandkids call you?
Grandpa.
Yeah.
Like I'm grandpa. My son and my daughter-in-law asked me and I say grandpa, because that's what I grew up. My grandparents were grandma and grandpa. So, I
that's what we are.
We don't Poppy or Papa. Or,
that's what we are too. We're just grandma and grandpa.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Vincent. Well, thank you very much. I really, really, really appreciate you taking this hour and a half to sit down and talk to us, talk about All My Children, relive the glory years of Dr. David Hayward, All My Children, and everything that you've contributed to daytime. I mean, you're a soap legend in your own right, and you're a humble man with with not much of an ego that I've been able to detect in this last hour and a half. But you deserve to have one. So, you know, if you wanted to not be like Susan or not be like David Canary and just be that Devo, you have my permission.
No, well, thank you. I'll consider that. I'll see. But no, I don't see the need for it. But I'm also just anybody who's going to be in Los Angeles next weekend. I'm going to be at the Hollywood show, and I'm advertising it on Instagram and also on Facebook and everything. But it's in Burbank, and it's an autograph sign, not just me, but there's going to be, I don't know, like 50 other celebrities from nighttime television, from films and daytime and everything. So yeah, so if you're in town, come on by and say hi.
Yeah,
all right,
and give them a follow on Instagram and Twitter as well, so you can keep up to date with what's going on in Vincent's life.
Yes, thank you, everybody, the fans. Thank you so much. For those of you, especially who came on to enjoy this podcast, we're very grateful that you came on and shared this time with us. Okay, and for all your years of support, Pine Valley Jolly was an offshoot of it. It never happened though. But I just that you were part of the Pine Valley family for all those years.
Yeah, well, you know, you wouldn't be here without us, and we wouldn't be here without you. So thank you so much. So you know, for all the people that catch us regularly, we will be back on tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Just Ma and me. Vincent will go off in his merry way and live his life doing his thing. And so we'll catch you Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific for the 10th Floor podcast. Thank you very much. I've been Matt.
And that's about General Hospital, right?
And that's about General Hospital. Yes, but it's about the week of General Hospital.
Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Kat, for inviting me to be a part of this. This was fun.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I have to tell you, you are Matt's interview. You are his favorite, other than David Canary. You are his favorite All My Children character. And this was very special for us. Thank you so much.
Well, it was special for me as well. Thank you so much for bringing me through the memories. It was great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay. All right. I'm gonna cut the stream. That's it. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Okay.